It's exactly 10 o'clock. I know that there are some people who are going to join us a little bit late, and we're just going to be okay with that today. We just welcome everybody to the neighborhood learning community. We have a new process for us today that we're going to try out, so thanks for joining us and kind of being part of our pilot on this. For those of you who are here, just a quick reminder about the technical considerations. If you are joining us, I think everybody here is online. Does everybody have a microphone? If you do, down in the very left-hand corner, you'll see a button that has mute or not mute. David, I saw you raised your hand and then you put it back down. Did you want to speak? No? Okay. You're on mute for now. We will get you off mute in a bit. Anyway, if you have any questions, do feel free to send it to the chat box. So today we're going to do a quick round of introductions, who's on the call, then we're going to turn it over. We'll do a little bit of an introduction around what a peer input process is, which is what we'll be doing, and then I'll turn it over to Angie to tell us a little bit more about what they're up to in the city of St. Albert, and then we'll do our closing announcements. So let's get started. Let's do a quick round of introductions. For those of you who I haven't met yet, my name is Glenda. I work with the Tamarack Institute. Tamarack's head office is in Waterloo, but I am in Salmon Arm, BC, so I'm 3 hours behind. And I am just so excited to be here and to be discussing the question that we have today around how do we build community in high-density neighborhoods. I'm going to turn it over. I'm just going to go through as I see them on my screen. So, Bobby Joe.
Hi there. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Awesome. So I'm Bobby Jo Stannard. I am the supervisor for community development within the city of Red Deer, and so excited to be actually participating in a call. It's been a long time, so it's good to see everybody.
I was just thinking that, Bobby Jo, so I'm so glad you're able to make it today. That's excellent. Is it Christine Bennett?
Yes, it is, Glenda. Hi.
Hi.
So Christine Bennett from Calgary, and I'm a team lead of community social workers, and we do community development as our intervention in neighborhoods.
Oh, awesome. Thanks for being here today. And then Tanya. Oh, do you have a microphone today, Tanya? Maybe not. We'll come back to you. David.
Good morning, everyone. It's David Plouffe, also with the City of Calgary. I'm a colleague with Christina. I'm a connector and bridge builder and around community development and neighborhoods. And right now I'm on a special project that's kind of outside of that realm, but that's my main focus with the City of Calgary.
Awesome. Thank you. And should we try Tanya again? Tanya and Amy? No. Okay. Okay, I'm going to turn it over to Heather. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, everybody. I think I actually have spoken to every single one of you, so I'm very excited to be on the call today. And this is a topic that has been on my radar for over a year. So I'm really excited about this. And I think Tanya actually accidentally hung up. So you got to give him a chance to call back.
Okay. Thank you for that.
We are back on the call. It's Tanya and Amy from the City Club. Sorry about that. We meant to press the unmute button and we accidentally pressed the hang up button. Sorry about that. But we're here. Yeah.
You're here. Awesome. Thank you. I am so excited today. I can't even tell you, because thank you for joining us in this process, which is called a peer input process. And my colleagues over here at Tamarack have been using this process for a while, and it's a really amazing opportunity for anybody within our network if you want to get extra feedback or put together a challenge to your peers, this is the time and the place and the process with which we can do this. So what we're going to do is I'm going to turn it over in a few minutes so that Angie can walk us through one of the challenges she's having. And she's just going to talk uninterrupted for about 10 minutes or so. And then I'm going to turn it over to you guys, and you can ask any of the peer questions any questions that you have to get more information from her, to dig a little bit deeper, to start to really understand the problem a little bit more, what they're facing. And then what's going to happen is once we feel like we've asked all the questions we need in order to have a discussion, then we're going to ask Angie to turn off her mic and probably her video camera. And we're going to just have a discussion, and we're going to talk about some of your lessons learned, some of the things that you may have tried. If you have other questions to add to the conversation, it will really be our chance to have a discussion, hopefully with some ideas or some nuggets that Angie can then take back and also apply to her challenge directly. And then she's going to come back and she's going to reflect some of the things that she's heard. At this point, we might even let her ask some questions back to the group. And then we're going to do some reflections about the process. So does anybody have any questions about the peer input process? Or are you willing to just jump in and see how we go as we go? Okay, we're just going to jump in. Angie, I'm going to turn it over to you, and you've got about 10 minutes.
Okay, thanks everybody. I'm actually super excited to present this question to you all, and I love that we have sort of a good cross-section of people from some bigger cities, and well, I think maybe I'm the smallest. I don't know how big Kelowna is, but St. Albert is about 65,000 people, and I'll just explain what I'm looking for your support with. So I've been doing neighborhood development with the City of St. Albert since 2011, and we're really working on building a sense of community and connectedness, doing a variety of different initiatives, usually with single family types of neighborhoods, because that's mostly what St. Albert is made up of. However, we have started to get a lot more apartments, and I have been working with one in particular and have been finding it really challenging. So I would love to hear some ideas from you about what you're doing. So I'll just tell you what's going on. So we have an apartment in St. Albert. It's a boardwalk property, if anybody's familiar with that company. We only have one boardwalk property in St. Albert. And back in 2012, I was approached by our police to tell me that there's a really high volume of calls coming from that particular neighborhood. So it's about 300 suites. So it's almost like a community unto itself. And they asked me to see if there was a neighborhood development approach that we could bring to try to sort of bring the crime down. So I was successful in building a relationship with the management there, and really slowly started to engage with residents. It's not like I could really just walk down hallways and knock on doors. So we tried a variety of different things. We attended a block party. We started actually realizing that the neighborhood was consisted greatly of a lot of temporary foreign workers at that time. There was a lot of families that were new to Canada, but there was also a real mix of socioeconomic levels in the community, some retired people. Like, it was just a really eclectic neighborhood. So one of the things we first landed on was people seemed to want to cook together. And when I say people, I found like one person who said they were interested in cooking, and then they asked their neighbor. So we had like 2 people in this neighborhood of 300 people that said, let's cook together. And we were able to sort of create a partnership with our food bank, who also was, as it happened, serving some of the residents that live in that neighborhood. And we started this cultural kitchen, which actually was a great success. It took off. People would share their cultural foods, and a lot of nice community was made there. But it sort of evolved and became more of a food bank initiative. So we sort of let that piece go. And we continued to move forward. We created a little free library for the community with the residents. Then we tried to create a resident committee, because what was sort of happening, I'm not really comfortable with the style of community development where I'm the one who's initiating everything. So we're really trying to encourage residents to be the leaders. So we created a resident committee after a little while, and that was good. We had a few little initiatives, we had some successes, and then, as you can imagine, things happened in multifamily neighborhoods. One of the key members moved away. Sadly, another one lost her spouse, so wasn't able to participate anymore. Another person, two of the members of the committee had some inappropriate behavior towards each other, and anyways, the whole committee sort of dissolved. And then all of the management left, so we had to start all over. And that was like 5 years of work, and now it's like back to ground zero. So it's kind of been frustrating. I think the biggest challenges, as I think about it, is, well, it's a lot of times multifamily communities are transient. So people are sort of, it's like they're on their way to somewhere else, or they're just getting established, or they don't plan to live there very long, or whatever. There's also often a lot of people who are vulnerable. They might be leaving an abusive relationship. Maybe they're single. Maybe they're, I don't know, they have some mental health. There's just a lot of stuff that it seems like people who land in apartments are struggling with. And also difficulty finding consistent resident leadership because of that. And then on top of that, the constantly changing management within the buildings. So those are kind of some of the challenges that we're trying to struggle with. And so we did try one other different approach. We thought, well, what if we, instead of creating a resident committee, what if we just try to provide services, like not directly, but once a month during rent payment day, we set up with various different community agencies in the office of the management company so that they could share some resources that are available that they might want to take advantage of. Like if we had, the food bank came one time, shared about their programs. We had somebody come and talk about, we have a tax assistance program to help people do their taxes. They came one time. We had Alberta Works come one time. So we tried doing that, and that didn't actually work as well as we thought, because the people who come and pay their rent on time are not the people who need help. So, it's like a learning curve we're trying to sort out. But okay, so, and now currently with that building, we are no longer involved, but we'd like to try to sort of figure out a new approach. So that's why it's sort of good timing. And we have another apartment. So one apartment's called Rivercrest. This other one's called Nevada Place, where it's the same kind of scenario. We haven't really done much work in it at all. There are 6 different buildings with 3 different management companies, and we have some subsidized apartment suites in them. And very smartly, we put it at the edge of town where there's no services, a bus that comes once in a while, and a park for the kids, but it's a 15-minute walk and you can't see it from the apartments. So not a great location. I'm trying to think of some ways to approach that. So I do have a neighborhood connector initiative in St. Albert where I'm inviting people to be a connector for their street or apartment floor. And I'm just starting to sort of experiment with that. I have one neighborhood connector in an apartment. So we're just starting our little journey there. So it would be great timing to get some input, ideas, experiences from all of you. So I think that's my big question. How do I build a sense of community and connectedness in apartment style multifamily neighborhoods?
Thank you so much. You did it exactly in the right amount of time.
I did? Oh, I think I spoke really fast, so I'm sorry about that.
No, I think we're good. And now for those, I know a couple of people just joined us while you were speaking. So just to let everybody know, we're doing what's called a peer input process. And we just had Angie speak about some of the challenges she's facing in St. Albert. And now we have this question of how do you build a sense of community and connectedness in an apartment-style multifamily neighborhoods? But before we get down to sharing some of our ideas and suggestions, maybe some recommendations or lessons learned, let's take some time. Who might have some questions for Angie just to get some clarification on what's going on, or to probe just a little bit deeper into what's happening? Does anybody have any questions for Angie?
I've got a question. It's Heather. So you said that the police are the ones who came to you. Yes. Originally. Did any residents come to you? Like, did it come from grassroots, or did it come from organization?
No, it came from organization. That's the hard thing, because and that's not normally how I would like to do neighborhood development work. But I mean, it was a need, there was a concern, and we thought, well, if neighbors knew each other, perhaps the crime calls would reduce. And I didn't mention that, but we actually did have a significant drop in the calls to the police. So it was a lot of things like, oh, well, gee, my neighbor is a nighttime shift worker, so I shouldn't be playing my music during the day so loud when they're trying to sleep. Like, it's just some of that kind of stuff. But yeah, but it was definitely not directed by the residents.
Okay. And Bobby Joe's got a question. Is there a condo board or an owner association within the building?
No. And there's no social space. There's no place to gather in the building.
Is there a place outside the building?
Yes, it's in the most beautiful location, right along the river in St. Albert. It's just, you can't really use that in the winter months. The management did allow us to use a lobby space that was kind of large, but it was very poorly lit, and it's, you know, we brought lamps and did a couple little events in it, but the most people we ever got out was 6. So I feel like a big failure. I'm like sharing my failures with you all.
And I think all of us can relate, so stop calling us all failures.
Okay.
This is part of the work and the stuff that it takes courage to talk about, because it's hard. It's hard stuff. Have you, David, did you want to say?
I was going to ask, like, in your question, you say a sense of community and connectedness in an apartment-style multifamily. What is the sense of community in the rest of St. Albert in these non-apartment style multifamily neighborhoods?
Good. We're doing a really great job. We do block parties, free libraries. We have neighborhood connectors. I have 75 neighborhood connectors in 16 of our 19 neighborhoods. Like, I feel like a real strong momentum building in that sense, but I feel like we're just not able to include our multifamily neighborhoods yet, and we're working on it. Like, is there some tools that we could provide that would make it easier for them to meet? I don't know. Like,
just as a clarifying question, what do you classify as multifamily neighborhood?
Well, I'm specifically looking at apartment style, right, with this question, but we do also want to include our condos and that are more like townhouse styles together. But I think it's a little easier in those neighborhoods than the apartment style. People seem to not talk to each other in apartment. I don't know why. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong.
Interesting. You have one neighborhood connector, is what you said?
Yes.
And how's that going?
Well, she just started, and she is excited to do a little experiment with me to figure out what's a good approach. So, I mean, we have that. So I've encouraged her to just start with her floor. Like, there's 4 floors with 12 apartments on each. And we do have crime-free multi-housing in St. Albert. I think some people might be familiar with that, but it's an initiative through the RCMP where an apartment signs up as being crime-free, meaning that they have to meet certain requirements, like their building has to have a crime prevention through environmental design approach. So they're making sure it's a safe environment. They have to have proper peepholes in the doors, that kind of thing. And then when residents sign on to the lease, they sign an agreement that says they won't commit a crime, and if they do, it's grounds for them to be break their lease. So we do have several crime-free buildings, and then part of that is having a social gathering. So I guess that's a builder for us. So in this building where I have that connector, it is a crime-free multi-housing building. It's just that the people nobody knows each other. So she came to me because she's lonely and she wants to meet her neighbors, but she doesn't know how to do it. So.
Okay.
Have you tried any sort of activities where it doesn't require space, like door decorating for the holidays or something like that? And then you could do like a scavenger hunt or something around that.
I haven't, but that sounds fun.
Something where it's, you know, they still stay in their personal space. I don't know how much people would take it up, but something where it doesn't require space, but other people are doing it, right?
Right, so they can participate, but not necessarily together.
Yeah, and then something that would, you know, like, you know, take a gallery walk around the halls or something like that, right? And then people can, I don't know, offer treats or something like that.
Cool
people,
idea.
One night where they're walking and seeing all the decorations or something like that, right?
Yeah, cool.
Where you wouldn't need an actual gathering space, that you would just have that naturally.
Great, I like it.
Okay. Do we have any other like clarifying or questions to dig just a little bit deeper into what Angie is facing? Okay. Angie, do you have any last minute things you want to share before we ask you to turn your...
No, I think I'm good. So I'm going to mute myself.
Yes, we'll get you to mute yourself.
Okay.
Now it's our turn to just have a discussion about what we've heard from Angie, to talk about some of the ideas, like the one that we just also heard around, hey, here's a way to start to build community without needing a meeting space. I really like that idea. Does anybody have any ideas for Angie or things that they have tried in their neighborhoods that they think might be helpful or might be applicable in this case?
It's Dave here. One of the key factors, and I think that a lot of times, in particular in these apartment style or multifamily neighborhoods, is that we might think of the community as all, like, I'm just going to make up the number, 300 people. But maybe it is really important to really look at the micro, and maybe it's by floor or of a community that is connected by one particular thing, as Angie talked about food, and really concentrate on that and create a way to build on that and just keep building. And then those other communities will develop, and then you'll get that bigger sense. So work more around a micro approach than just looking at maybe the whole macro of that one apartment or one condo.
It's interesting when I hear you say that, because we think about an apartment building sometimes as being, it's just one building, and yet within that, each floor is different. There's so many different diverse, as we heard from Angie, demographics. So how do we start to build that? I think that's a really interesting idea, to start connecting where there might already be natural connection points, and then build on there. That's a brilliant point.
I'm thinking about, because just going back to the original intent of doing it, which was an organization coming and saying that there's a need in this building. Which then, in terms of John McKnight and the asset-based community development, is we're starting off on the foot of what's wrong and not what's strong in the community. And so and then the other thing is you know, how we need to start from the grassroots and really kind of build the momentum with the residents, almost like you're finding your local champions. And I know Angie had said she, was trying to find the block connectors or the floor connectors. So I'm thinking maybe it's hosting conversations on each floor where, in the hallway, remember that commercial? There's a PC commercial that we showed a long time ago, and it was about an apartment building, and they set up dinner in the hallway, and next thing you know, everyone was joining them for dinner. So, setting up a coffee chat place in the hallway, and maybe doing some asset mapping of the gifts and the assets on each floor. So kind of starting with what is strong and building on that.
It's Dave again, Heather. I would agree, but maybe it's not always around the conversation or those assets. Maybe those are what we as people who work in this stuff do. Maybe it's just creating some type of prompt or something that allows people within the building or whatever that structure to kind of start to have that little seed that builds, and you just observe that, and you might be the catalyst to help push it here or there, but maybe not be so in there. Sorry, I'm using my hands in front of the screen. But yeah.
It's almost like, because Angie, when I came there, and I know you're not speaking, but there was that mobile coffee cart, and so maybe it's just random, having random free coffee on the floors to get the conversation going. Because again, Dave, you said people congregate around food and drink. And so, just picking random floors and inviting people to have coffee and starting to have chats and conversations amongst each other. So just creating that environment.
One of the things that we did this summer, this is Bobby Joe from City of Red Deer, was a pop-up spray park in about 8 different communities. And so the fire department partnered with community development to hold these pop-up events. And what we found is it allowed people to come out of their houses and not be identifiable as to where they lived, but they could all be together in the same space with no particular barriers between them or preconceived assumptions. And so one of the things we're talking about this fall or this winter is pop-up winter festivals. So if you have a space to do hot chocolate and coffee and snowshoeing or tobogganing, that sort of thing, it brings people out of the apartment buildings. What we found with the spray parks is we set up a pop-up spray park kind of in front of an apartment building, and people just started filtering out of the apartment building and starting to get to know each other that way. And so it was a much less intimidating activity for those within the apartment building to just come out and meet each other in a neutral space. So that might be something that starts to bring your champions to the forefront by just continuing to have those activity-based opportunities that then turn into that bit of that community development.
That's great. Does anybody else have any thoughts they want to share? Angie?
Maybe for me, like with Boardwalk, and maybe Christina can chat about it too, but we here in Calgary have quite a few Boardwalk the buildings, and as one of our bigger companies. But I was just wondering, with them, like, are there other things that you can replicate from their other cities or communities throughout Canada that maybe are working?
I can speak a little bit. It's Christine here. We met with our Boardwalk counterparts here in Calgary just over the summer. We were pretty excited because it's the first time we were ever able to meet the upper management. In fact, we met the CEO of Boardwalk. He was really intrigued with what we wanted to do, and he opened doors that we'd never had in Boardwalk buildings before. So we matched our priority neighborhoods with their Boardwalk locations, and we're able to match up our staff with their staff. What we found is that that really helped us get in the door. once we were in the door, as you did, Angie, we just found people with energy. I mean, I was really interested when you started talking about your cooking circle. It sounded like you had some energy there, and then I just kind of wrote down that it kind of went into a food bank initiative. Possibly you lost your community development then if it went into something like that. But we're just at these very beginning stages with a few of the boardwalk complexes that we'd had limited ability to get into the building. We were able to draw people out. I mean, great ideas about the events and the winter festivals. What we know is that through our conversation with Boardwalk, they were thinking at the time to they love that neighborhood connector model, obviously, and they were thinking of actually making it so people are named a neighborhood connector and it's associated with their tenancy. And I found that intriguing. I don't know, I haven't connected with them lately to find out if they are, that's what they were thinking of anyways when we spoke to them on this in the summer, in terms of embedding that kind of neighborhood connection right into their buildings from the get-go, which would be a great asset.
And this actually,
Tanya,
go ahead.
no, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say,
Heather, go for it.
Go, Tanya.
How about before you go, Tanya? I just wanted to build off of what Christina and Dave said. You know, in the future, and when we have new apartment style developments happening, is working with the developers with a set of criteria so that we do build a space that can be supportive of a community environment. It's not going to help Angie now, but I think in the, you know, as growth happens.
Perfect. Okay, Tanya, you're up.
Okay. Yeah, I really like all the ideas, like the ideas of the pop-up festivals, the pop-up coffee shops, just to draw people out, but I still think it comes back to having that one block connector, one apartment connector to maintain that momentum, as Heather said. Like, there's only so much that the organizations and the municipalities can do to support, but really it has to be coming from the residents too. So I like the festivals idea, and that we like support the residents in connecting people in those neutral spaces, and just educating people about the importance of the block connector, the neighborhood connector program, because it's not like, I know with our neighborhoods, like there's so many different apartments that we could target to draw people out, but we can't keep doing that because we have so many resources. It's really trying to identify those champions from those apartments that maintain those door decorating or festive opportunities for people to get involved. So I'm just kind of elaborating. Yeah, I really like the idea of doing these pop-up coffees, but it should really come from the residents.
And I wonder, so it's Amy now. I wonder if with like the one block or a neighborhood connector that you have in the apartments right now, like maybe it'd be a bit of a stretch, but kind of playing off of what David suggested, like to approach that connector and find out, you know, like what are their interests? Like what are, like, are they, I don't know, are they into running? Are they into knitting? Like, and is it just a matter of, like, I don't know, putting the word out to the whole building and just like, hey, you know what, we're going to have like a knitting circle, and if that connector would be comfortable having people at her place, or if she feels maybe that's too fast, or, but, you know, have people over to her apartment for people who want to come and knit, and just like let the whole, like, because I'm sure in the whole building there's got to be some people who have a similar interest as to what she's interested in, and then there's that momentum built in if it's something she's passionate about, or they're passionate about, I should say.
Yeah, if someone's interested in walking groups, and someone else can walk around the neighborhood and build that sense of a walking group community. So, yeah, it's hard because I feel like Angie has done everything that we thought was that was great. So yeah, it really is a challenge.
Thank you.
Yeah, one of the things, building on that micro bit, and it's like thinking about, you know, here in Calgary, and Christine's team was very integrated with our, this is My Neighborhood program. And I remember a story within our community of Forest Lawn in that area. And we had all these great initiatives and working with some of the connectors in the neighborhood. And at one of our meetings, these 4 ladies had been a walking group for probably 10 years or so, just there. And this one lady heard that they were and asked if she could join. And for me, I think that's a success. They got one more person, and who knows what has happened in there and just build. And sometimes maybe we, in these things, we try to create them so big that we want all this impact. But maybe that one lady joining these 4 other ladies has created a bigger impact in that neighborhood or in that block than we ever know can happen. That didn't make sense at the end there, but yeah.
I think that's a really interesting point too. Sometimes it doesn't have to be everybody all at once, but there is benefit to those smaller groups meeting and getting connected. And then what is the ripple effect of that? Interesting.
I'm going back to my public health days and how we were taught in terms of making change. And the first part is building awareness. And so, you know, with the organization and coming top down, it's building awareness with the residents about why this is important. So maybe it's the Great Disconnect movie, you know, doing a movie night, or, you know, just a poster campaign about building connection. So it's just building that awareness, because as people go, oh yeah, you know what, I don't know my neighbors, or the question is, do you know 10 of your neighbors? If not, here are things you can do. So it's kind of going back to that awareness building phase before we then jump into programs and activities.
It's a really interesting point. We always want to get to the solution, where we sit with and build some understanding. Okay, I'm going to give a final call for thoughts, comments, words of encouragement. Okay, Angie, do you want to come back and join us?
Oh my God, this is so exciting.
Okay, so it's over to you to give some reflections here.
Good idea, I love it, yes. I have 2 pages of notes, everybody, thank you.
Awesome.
So do you want me to just...
Yeah, what did you hear? What's resonating? Do you have any questions back to anybody about something they said?
I do. So I love the idea of the micro communities, and I think I didn't share that the neighborhood connector that I have in that apartment, she's helping us test the abundant community tool that Edmonton's using. So we're using the little questions to go to your neighbors and knock on every door and ask them what's their vision for the neighborhood, what are your skills and interests, and what would you like to share with others? And then we also added, is there some way you could use help from your neighbors? Like in terms of, you know, if they need drives or whatever. So she's using that to test it. So when Dave, that you mentioned the micro communities, I was like, okay, that's one way, because she can, when she's talking and interviewing neighbors, she might find those micro communities and then be able to connect them. And she's also really gung-ho to do the whole apartment. And I kind of encouraged her to just start with her own floor. And then when just hearing some of these ideas, I think that's the right approach. Don't get too big yet. Like, let's just start with your floor. So I really appreciated that. I do really appreciate the idea of building on what's, like, obviously the asset approach. I think it's hard when you're asked to go in to a community by another organization. But the problem is, it's like all throughout all these great ideas, my problem I keep having is the transient part. Like, it's like you just find a champion and then they move into a house, which is awesome for them, but you're like, now I got to start all over. Like, it's like, how do you build, like, I guess maybe we need to be building, once you have one champion, you need to keep working to find more champions. So when the one champion leaves, there's still other champions. But it's just like, seems like such a long process that it's just, I don't know. I'm not sure I've got that one sorted, but I love it. I do also really love the pop-up spray park idea with the fire department. Oh my God, that would be so cool. Like, one thing I wondered about that, Bobby Joe, was how did you let the apartment people know you were doing that? Or did you just show up with these fire trucks and everybody came down?
A little bit of both. So the city started to put some social media out on Facebook and Twitter to indicate where the next pop-up park would be, but nothing brings people out of a building quicker than a bunch of fire trucks rolling up.
Right.
And so activity just kind of started and people were curious. So that was an interesting part because there wasn't a predetermined thought process for the community to decide if they wanted to be interested or not. They were just straight up curious.
Okay, I love it.
And this is Dave. We have, at the City of Calgary, we also have our mobile spray parks, which just won a big award with Alberta Parks and Rec, I think, or Canadian Parks and Rec. And they were part again with our This Is My Neighborhood, and they were unbelievable. Our fire department teams created these mobile spray parks out of their own ingenuity and innovation and creativity, and they drive around and set them up. And but answering that question about it's through social media, the normal channels of communication, and then word of mouth, and they've been fantastic. One of the great successes about This Is My Neighborhood.
Awesome. Could I find more information about that somewhere, or
I'll send you the key person that created that and has all the information. So
okay, and if maybe I could get that from you too, Bobby Joe.
Absolutely, I'll send you whatever we've got.
Awesome. I think my fire department guys would love that. Okay, then I had, let's see here. Oh, I love the idea, the progress that you're making in Calgary with Boardwalk, because I did kind of tried a little bit, but because there's only one boardwalk in St. Albert, I couldn't really access the leadership in Edmonton. So there was a bit of it seemed like they kept, every time we tried to create some kind of connections with the upper management, we got shut down. So we weren't having success with that. But maybe if you set some precedent in Calgary with Boardwalk, that would be really helpful. So like I could share, this is what Calgary's doing or something, like that might help. I really like the idea of having neighborhood connectors like from the beginning. And if it's coming from the top, then when the management changes, it doesn't matter. Like I shouldn't have to go in there and ask again, introduce myself as I work for the city. Could we put up some posters? No, we don't do posters anymore. Like it's just maddening.
I hear your pain and I feel your pain because we've experienced that pain. It is so frustrating. It was such a brilliant opportunity to meet with a CEO who believed in neighborhood like we believed in neighborhood, where residents are first and foremost, and just to support them. Like it was so refreshing. I would say that that's really helped for the first time ever open doors, besides our social workers being able to get into our Calgary housing, our social housing. We've always been kind of stymied. So this was our first big coup, I would suggest.
Yeah, I think that's amazing, because that's the problem with some of the other apartments is it kind of depends who the manager is, if they're open to it. I think it was Tanya or somebody was saying it would be great if people could have walking groups in their apartments, that kind of thing. But there literally is no place in some of these buildings for people to say, hey, I'm looking to have a walking group. They're not allowed to put posters up. Some don't let them do that. So how do you tell your neighbor, how do you find each other? It's so weird.
It's counterintuitive, isn't it?
Yes. But like I find a lot of the managers, it's just a business thing. They're there to collect the rent, to make sure things are run smoothly. You know, it's not, there's not a social side of it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It's like it's different for every apartment.
It is.
Could the property manager send out notices? Because I know for my apartment, the property manager sends out like weekly updates, and maybe the resident could connect with the manager to send out the notice to people on that floor of the apartment that here's a schedule of the different activities, or so-and-so is planning to lead like a walking group or a hot chocolate gathering at her place. Please see so-and-so for more information or something like that. If they can't post posters, and sometimes you can't slide things under the doors, maybe that's the best way. Or our complex also has like a Facebook group, but again, it's hard to advertise that until you have like a block party or some festival. It's like, hey, if you're in this apartment, go check out or sign up to this Facebook group and stay tuned for more information. But yeah, I can see that challenge too.
Yeah. Well, and like I said, it depends on the manager, because some are open to that and they get it and they want to create that, and others, they don't. So I almost feel like I did actually try. We tried a few years ago with our police in having kind of a multi-family managers network to talk about crime prevention. But I almost wish I could do that. I guess I could do some education with managers. The problem is they change. I don't know. I feel like sometimes I'm hitting my head against the wall.
This is Dave again. Have you or anybody have been using Nextdoor, like that social neighborhood organization, or it's a private company, like private social network for neighborhood? We have quite a few, or not. That's maybe an exaggeration, but we have several of our communities here in Calgary using it, and they just met last week. But I was thinking, it would be quite an interesting thing if you could create Nextdoor, or using Nextdoor within an apartment style or multifamily neighborhood.
So I just actually learned about that because I heard that Edmonton was promoting it. And
it's through the abundant communities. Yeah.
But what would you say the advantage of that is over a Facebook group?
I'm not sure, because I've not myself personally used it, but I do know there's not in my work-wise, but the neighborhood I live next to uses it, and it's very, very focused, and you can invite people in and out. But I don't know what the advantage is compared to Facebook, but it seems like it's gaining a lot of momentum here in Calgary, and the Abundant Communities group in particular down in our Copperfield neighborhood has been using it, and a few other ones, both suburban and inner city. So, yeah.
Okay. Something to explore.
Yeah.
Angie, I got an idea that you could float by, is a community board in the building. Yes. So instead of posters, because I'm working with social housing complex, and only the community developer and the social housing could hand out posters, and it got tedious, and then they didn't want to hand it out anymore. So they actually finally put up a community board, and people go there.
Right.
And
so
look.
You could put ideas on it, like I'm looking to walk, I need to borrow a tool, or whatever.
So it's one spot that can be maintained versus posters going up on walls and no one takes it down. So it might be the property manager and the building manager might go more for that, because it's contained one spot and it's easier to take off stuff and put stuff on.
Right. Yeah, that's a good idea. I like it. Yeah, I think I got lots of great ideas from everybody here. I really appreciate it.
And I just want to jump in. I actually think you should do some sort of thing for property managers. Yeah, they do come and go, but there are those who stay. And if I'm a new property manager, I'm going to connect with another property manager. And so you can start, that's how you have to start, is kind of building that foundation. And then those who stay property managers will be your promoters. new ones.
Yeah, I like that. And we are working a little bit, I think you said it, Heather, on the requirement to have social space. We're right in the process of redoing our municipal development plan, and you can believe me, I've been to every consultation. I'm getting my neighborhood network people to go, and we're all trying to be a little ear in their, like a little bee in their ear about it's how we need to require a social space in our multifamily housing. Like there's other things too, but I think we should be requiring it. And we should also not be building these properties on the edge of town where there's no services for people to access. Like it's actually shocking that that happened, but
yeah,
if you don't have rules to guide it, then it just happens.
I know the city of Burlington in Ontario has had this exact question and issue, and they're working on their official plans to incorporate standards.
Oh, okay.
And so I'll connect you with Denise.
Sure, that'd be great.
Yeah. That's excellent. Angie, I can give you 30 seconds. Is there any last final thoughts for you just on what you heard?
I'm very grateful, everybody, for all your ideas. They're all excellent. And I have some work to do now. Thank you.
And then I want to turn over to the whole group. Angie, you can speak to this too. What about this process and about, are there any reflections about the process? Is there anybody with any thoughts around this? Just want to turn it over to have a bit of a conversation around, was this helpful for people?
Hi, everyone. It's Dave again. I've used peer-to-peer or this process several times in the work that I've done. My very first one was with a group within our city, within our real estate team. And one of the parts that was the most difficult or challenging was for the person who presented the question to be quiet during the time that the peer-to-peer discussion was happening. And so I commend Angie for being able to be quiet and not jumping in, because I think that's one of the key strengths with peer-to-peer is to be able to have that discussion and asking questions in a group and allowing the person who's asked the question to be quiet and listen curiously about what's being talked about or discussed. So great on you, Angie, on that one.
Well, I was really loud. You just couldn't hear me.
There is a benefit to having microphones that we can mute.
Yes.
What was it like for you, Angie?
I actually was. I was like, yes. Oh, how would that work? Like I was actually talking out loud while you guys were talking too. But I really liked it. I think it was good. It was good to sit with the silence in between a little bit because it allows. Like I'm a processor myself. I need time to sometimes think about what people are saying. So I liked the chance to sort of reflect on it and listen and try to think. And then especially because I knew I had to reflect on what you were all saying, I was like writing like comments in my mind or on my paper. So yeah, I liked it actually. It was good. I think it probably would be hard if you were all in the same room together to just like keep your mouth shut. I think it would be hard because there were some times when people said things and I wanted to say, oh yeah, right, good idea. Or we did try that, but it didn't work, or whatever. But like, I like this process. It was good.
Yeah, one way that I did it, and I think it was my third time using it, and it was a little odd, but I had a good person doing it, is that person actually turned their back to the group so they could we couldn't speak out. We tried it. It worked because she was very supportive, always trying new ways to approach questions. One other advice that I had that I built is that for people who participate in this type of approach is that I have sent out definitions about what is a clarifying or a provoking type question, and some examples so that the initial discussion to ask like Angie keeps going. But we did really well in this group because we had good questions, but just something to think about if you're using it in future events.
that's really good feedback too, to talk about the definitions and to set the stage. So I really appreciate everybody kind of jumping in as we did, because I kind of said, hey, this is a great opportunity for us to practice this. So thanks everybody again for doing that. I know that there's people who haven't spoken in a while. I kind of want to see, does anybody else have anything they want to add as we start to wrap this up? I'm a big fan of awkward silences, and I can wait a long time. Okay, I won't force anybody to talk. But if you have any feedback or you want to touch base, let me know. And if you have a question that you would like to bring to the group, like, let's do that. This is your space to use and for us to grow together. So if there's something that is kind of niggling for you, or you've got a challenge that you're facing, talk to me. Let's set it up. Angie, would you say that you're glad now that you've done this, or that, yeah?
Yeah, it's really great timing, because I've been talking about trying to build our multifamily approach for a while. I still could use another person to help me do it, because like probably all the rest of you, it's just off the side of the desk, but it's maybe someday. But I love all these ideas, so I'm glad that I was able to participate in this. I really appreciate the opportunity. I guess I maybe need to I hope I can still I'd like to be in touch with, that's my lingering question. How do I get in touch with all these great ideas? Like, I think I have Bobby Joe's, but I don't have emails for Dave or Christine or Tanya.
I sent you mine in a private message there, so if you wanted to look.
Oh, okay. Is that in this group?
In the chat room, yeah. But just to you.
Got it, yeah. Okay, thank you.
So what if, Angie, if we send out your email address,
okay,
and can connect with you directly, if does that work for everybody, or is anybody who's like, or I could send everybody who's here their email address just directly to Angie. Does anybody have any hesitations with me sharing your email addresses with this group? Just this who's here today.
No problem from me, Christine here.
Okay, thanks, Christine.
Same as me.
All good for me.
Thanks, Bobby Joe. Oh, it says, yeah, okay. And same.
Okay.
Awesome. So I will send out an email. We'll do our regular post follow-up email, but I'll also send your emails to each other so you can have that information. So just before we sign off, I also want to say congratulations. We actually did this on time. I don't know. Like,
good job, Glenda.
Everything. That's a good job, team. So just a reminder, our next NLC COP is January 21st. Woohoo! That's like the new year. I'm blown away that this is where we are. So happy holidays, I guess. The other thing to say. But we hope that we'll see you before then on a couple of upcoming learning opportunities. We have this one, which I'm really excited for, around authentic engagement with people who have lived and living experience. And so we have Cheryl Whiskey Jack, and I just think she's a phenomenal speaker, and this isn't going to be one that you're going to want to miss for sure. So sign up. Even if you can't attend, sign up so that you can get the recording afterwards. I highly recommend participating in this one. Then we also have Asking Our Communities, a journey to understand participation and involvement, which after our conversation today, it feels really timely. We'll have Paul Bourne, and we'll also have Lydia from the Vancouver Foundation, and they've done some phenomenal work around engagement. So it will be one to also possibly take in, especially given the conversation we've just had. So I will send out this information in our follow-up email as well, so you have it so you can register. And with that, thank you. And if you do have any comments, or you have a burning issue that you want to bring up on on January 21st, let me know. I'd love to have that conversation and do this again. Okay, thanks everybody.
Thanks everyone.